Part 9. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yun Suya. Chapter 81. Chapter 81. The jealous look is cued. Before Jun Chennai had time to think deeply, he was suddenly dragged away. When he saw it clearly, he realized it was his agent. Jian Li, Jun Chennai's manager, found out after making a phone call that he was missing. Then he looked around and saw Jun Chennai at a glance. He quickly pulled him over. "Uncle Li, I haven't gotten my milk tea yet." Jun Chennai was forced into the car and complained. "Little ancestor, you don't need me to tell you how many calories milk tea has, right? Last time, the media wrote a press release to accuse you of gaining weight. Why don't you control it?" Jian Li said. Jun Chennai rolled his eyes. "That's a matter of angle. My weight has only changed by more than half a kg, right? Okay, don't sneak out anymore. What if someone recognizes you?" "No." Jun Chennai curled his lips, then leaned back and leaned on the back of the seat. "You have a good rest during the day, and you have a commercial to shoot in the evening." Jian Li continued. Jian Li is Jun Chennai's manager who has been with him since he debuted. He is 32 years old, has rich experience, and has made several idol stars famous. Many of today's popular celebrity artists were brought out by Jian Li. Therefore, most people in the circle will respectfully call him Li Ji. While Jun Chennai closed his eyes to rest, he thought about the conversation between the two girls he just heard and raised his eyebrows unconsciously. Luo Xin rarely cooked in person today and cooked a table of delicious dishes. As soon as Xia Ying came home, she smelled the familiar smell that she had not seen for a long time. So I hurried to the kitchen, and sure enough it was Luo Xin who was cooking. "Mom, it smells so good." Xia Ying hugged Luo Xin from behind, and Luo Xin smiled. "Go and wash your hands, you can eat soon." "Mom, what a great day it is today, you actually cooked the food yourself." Xia Ying let go of Luo Xin and watched Luo Xin cooking her favorite sweet and sour pork ribs. She wasn't hungry at first, but when she saw the sweet and sour pork ribs, Xia Ying's stomach immediately began to growl. "As you said, Mom still has to choose a day to cook." Luo Xin smiled. Xia Ying laughed heartily. "Mom, you will cook more often in the future. I like to eat the food you cook the most. No chef or nanny can compare to the food you cook." Luo Xin smiled. "I'm afraid it can't compare to your honey-filled mouth." Xia Menjian was behind her, silently looking at the loving mother and daughter in the kitchen, and she lightly raised her lips and sneered. "Is it so beautiful?" This voice, which seemed to come from an ice cellar, immediately made Xia Menjian shudder. She turned around and saw Yu Lingfeng's unparalleled handsome face. Yu Lingfeng. When Xia Menjian saw Yu Lingfeng, her face blushed unconsciously. "This man is really extremely handsome. How did you come?" As soon as Xia Menjian finished speaking, Xia Ying turned around and saw Yu Lingfeng, and then shouted in surprise, "Yu Lingfeng, why are you here so early today?" Normally Yu Lingfeng would come to tutor Xia Ying after her evening self-study, but now it's just after school in the afternoon. Xia Ying suddenly thought of something and looked back at Luo Xin who was still busy. "Mom, you cooked the food yourself because Yu Lingfeng wanted to eat at home." Luo Xin smiled sheepishly. "It's rare that Lingfeng can come to our house for dinner." Xia Ying curled her lips, then walked up to Yu Lingfeng and said silently, "You are so proud. My mother can't get out of the kitchen a few times a year." Yu Lingfeng looked at Xia Ying and said nothing. "I just think the way she pouts slightly and becomes jealous is quite cute. Thanks to the little cutie, milk flavor is crispy for the reward." End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yun Suya. Chapter 82. Chapter 82. She wants to destroy her hand. "Mom, let me serve you the food." Xia Ying volunteered and ran to the kitchen to help. Xia Menjian suddenly thought of something and followed closely. "Aunt Luo, I'm here to help too. Xiaomenjian smiled sweetly. Okay, so good. Luo Xian smiled gently at Xiaomenjian. Xia Chuanhai and Yu Lingfeng were sitting on the sofa. Xia Chuanhai chatted with Yu Lingfeng enthusiastically, and Yu Lingfeng talked to him calmly. Yu Lingfeng always talks little and doesn't like to talk, and Xia Chuanhai knows this very well about him. But Xia Chuanhai would still chat with Yu Lingfeng from time to time to learn about his recent developments. Yu Lingfeng is the son of his old friend. That old friend had a great influence on him, so he naturally takes care of his descendants as if they were his own children. In Xia Chuanhai's eyes, Yu Lingfeng was his unrelated son. Aunt Luo, let me serve you this soup. Xiaomenjian glanced, found her target, and walked straight towards the pot of chicken soup that had been simmering for a long time. Menjian, that one is very hot, I'd better do it. Luo Xian was about to stop her, but Xiaomenjian had already put on her gloves and picked them up. It's okay, Aunt Luo, this won't trouble me. Xiaomenjian said with a smile. Although Muniankai only asked her to burn a scar on Xia Ying's hand, when Xiaomenjian's eyes fell on Xia Ying's white and delicate jade hands, her eyes suddenly darkened, and a sudden thought came to her. Caught her heart. She wanted to destroy Xia Ying's hand. Xia Ying's hands are the most valuable thing besides her face. Xia Ying has been learning musical instruments since she was a child, so the importance of her hands to her is self-evident. Xiaomenjian felt that instead of burning a scar, she would rather destroy her hand. Xia Ying followed Luo Xian with 2 plates of side dishes, and Xiaomenjian followed Xia Ying. After exiting the kitchen door, Xiaomenjian deliberately walked around to Xia Ying's right side, following Xia Ying closely, looking at Xia Ying from the corner of her eye from time to time, ready to find a good opportunity to strike. Xia Ying realized something was wrong with Xiaomenjian. She was fine. What was she doing so close to her? Until, Xia Ying's eyes focused on the pot of thick chicken soup, Xia Ying suddenly frowned, and a bad idea came to her heart. This girl, isn't she so evil-minded that she wants to pour this pot of chicken soup on her? Xia Ying thought this, and then glanced at Xiaomenjian's hands that were trembling slightly due to nervousness or something while holding the chicken soup. Xia Ying curled her lips and showed a casual smile. It seems that her guess is probably close to 10. Xiaomenjian really wished for her to have a better life all the time. Xia Ying shivered and became alert immediately. But she still pretended to be nonchalant, looking at Xiaomenjian with her peripheral vision, pretending not to know anything. At this moment, Xiaomenjian thought she had found the right opportunity, pursed her lips, and at a corner, pretended not to stand still, and poured a pot of just boiling chicken soup onto Xia Ying. Xia Ying immediately took a step back, everything was just right. Xiaomenjian looked back at Xia Ying blankly, and then the next second. Ah! At this time, screams came along with the sound of breaking casseroles, and Luo Xian turned around suddenly. He saw the chicken soup and container fragments splashed all over the floor, and Xiaomenjian, who was crying because the chicken soup fell to the ground and was splashed with hot soup. Luo Xian reacted quickly, put down the dishes and ran to the kitchen. Luo Xian turned on the faucet, took a large basin of cold water, and poured it on Xiaomenjian's legs that had been splashed by the hot soup. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 83. Chapter 83. Why lie? Xia Ying, on the other hand, watched the whole process expressionlessly. She was indeed right about her guess. If she hadn't known Xiaomenjian well enough, this pot of hot chicken soup would have been spilled on her hands. It's just that Xiaomenjian probably never thought that she would have noticed her vicious little thoughts. Xiaomenjian raised her head and glanced at Xia Ying. Xia Ying's eyes darkened and she met her gaze with a half-smile. Xia Menjian always thought that Xia Ying had accepted her, but now it seemed that Xia Ying was so wary of her. She actually expected that she would throw chicken soup at her. It turned out that her previous kindness to her was all pretending. When did she reveal her secret to Xia Ying? Yu Lingfeng and Xia Chuanhai, who heard the noise, also rushed to the kitchen and saw Luo Xin, who was treating Xia Menjian's leg injury, and Xia Ying, who was standing aside calmly. Chuanhai, call Dr. Li quickly. Luo Xin shouted to Xia Chuanhai. Dr. Li is the family doctor of the Xia family. He lives nearby and can get here quickly. Xia Menjian must get treatment from a professional doctor as soon as possible, otherwise, scars will remain in the future. Menjian, why are you so careless? You agreed to let me serve it, but you were too brave. Now that it's better, your legs are burned. Luo Xin said angrily while handling Xia Menjian. Xia Menjian pursed her lips and quickly squeezed out big tears. Then, Xia Menjian raised her head, glanced at Xia Ying, and then said, Aunt Luo, I don't know what happened, but when I just walked to the corner, Sister Xia Ying accidentally hit my hand, so there was no stable chicken soup. Xia Ying frowned after hearing this. When did she hit her hand? This girl now thinks that she can't be framed, so she comes to beat her up again? Obviously she wanted to burn her but she noticed it. Now she said it as if she meant to burn her. Menjian, what are you talking about? I don't have the hand to hit you. I'm obviously serving food with both hands, so how can I hit you? Xia Ying twitched the corners of her lips and said calmly. Xia Menjian lowered her head, pretending to be aggrieved but not wanting to hold Xia Ying responsible. Sister Xia Ying, I don't know what makes you dislike me, but I have really tried my best. Some things are really beyond my control. Xia Ying's face darkened. Why did she keep talking more and more outrageously? What do you mean? You should make it clear. Don't act like I bullied you. Xia Ying's voice turned cold. Sister Xia Ying, we were obviously walking side by side at that time. Why did the chicken soup splash only burn me but not you? Xia Menjian raised her eyes and met Xia Ying's eyes. Xia Ying frowned. She actually left her such a hand. Facing the gazes of Luo Xin and Xia Chuanhai, Xia Ying calmed down lightly and explained, when the chicken soup was about to be poured, I happened to notice it, so I quickly took a few steps back. Isn't this a normal reaction? Nothing strange. Why do you insist that I threw chicken soup at you on purpose? Why did you lie? Xia Menjian did not answer Xia Ying's question directly. She kept relying on her pity to put herself in a weak position and twitched twice. I understand, Sister Xia Ying, you still don't like me. Xia Ying resisted the urge to roll her eyes. After all, Xia Chuanhai was looking at her, and she couldn't show her inner disgust. Please give me a recommendation vote. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 84. Chapter 84. I have always been so wary of her. She starts to act pitiful when the questions she raises cannot be explained clearly, and she can make things that are fiction come true. Anyway, she is an illegitimate daughter, she is pitiful, her legs were burned, she is pitiful. And Xia Ying, a person who was unscathed, deserves to be suspected by her? Xia Menjian's inherent method really makes people feel sick in their hearts. Xia Ying, Menjian is your sister. Xia Menjian's way of pretending to be pitiful has always been Xia Chuanhai's weakness. Xia Chuanhai originally felt that he was sorry for her, but she just said something like that. Xia Chuanhai was easily persuaded by her, and she really thought that Xia Ying really didn't like her as a sister from the bottom of her heart. This matter has nothing to do with me. Even if I really hate her, I'm not that stupid to do such a mentally retarded thing. Xia Ying just said this lightly, and that was the only sentence. She had nothing more to say. If Xia Chuanhai really knew her, he shouldn't doubt her character. Xia Chuanhai sighed, but did not say anything in the end. Instead, he squatted down and looked at Xia Menjian's injuries with concern. Yu Lingfeng walked up to Xia Ying, lowered his eyes and asked her, "Are you okay?" Xia Ying shook her head and did not look at him. Yu Lingfeng lowered his voice and said at a volume that only Xia Ying and he could hear, "Did Xia Menjian frame you deliberately? But instead of stealing the chicken, you lost the rice." Xia Ying was startled and looked up at Yu Lingfeng in surprise. How would he know? Xia Ying originally thought that she was the only person in the family who knew what kind of character Xia Menjian was. And Yu Lingfeng actually knew that. But, he had never had any contact with Xia Menjian, how could he know? Yu Lingfeng saw that Xia Ying didn't answer, but he knew something about it from her expression. Yu Lingfeng raised his eyebrows and looked back at Xia Menjian coldly for a while. That look was like a beast that had been robbed of its lair, brutal and devoid of any tenderness. Xia Menjian inadvertently raised her eyes and met Yu Lingfeng's gaze. Just one glance made her shudder. Is it her illusion or something? Yu Lingfeng seems to hate her. After briefly soaking in cold water for a while, Luo Xian took out a small household medicine box and carefully applied some burn medicine to Xia Menjian. "Menjian, if it hurts, don't bear it." Luo Xian looked at Xia Menjian in front of her with distress, holding back the tears in her eyes, but stubbornly refused to let them flow out. "Aunt Luo, it's okay, I don't feel any pain." Xia Menjian forced out a forced smile to comfort Luo Xian. Luo Xian wiped her tears and said, "It's okay. Dr. Li will definitely find a solution when he comes. It won't leave any scars, and it won't affect your ability to wear small skirts in summer." Xia Menjian nodded vigorously, "Yes. In fact, how could such a burn leave no scar? Everyone can imagine how high the temperature of the chicken soup and oil soup is after simmering in the casserole for so long. Such burns will definitely leave scars in the future." Xia Menjian knew in her heart that Luo Xian was trying to comfort her, but she still nodded. She needs to gain a certain degree of favorability in Luo Xian's heart if she wants to stay in this family for a long time. This point is very important. Luo Xian is a very soft-hearted person, and she has always been sweet-talking and smart, so there should be no problem in capturing her. At the moment, Xia Menjian's biggest headache is Xia Ying. She never thought that Xia Ying had always been so wary of her. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 85. Chapter 85. Stay away from her. After Xia Menjian's wound was treated, Xia Chuanhai and Luo Xian listened to Dr. Li's medical instructions and some precautions in the side hall. Xia Ying had just entered the room but had not yet come out. Xia Menjian and Yu Lingfeng were the only two people left in the living room. Yu Lingfeng had a dull expression throughout the whole process, sitting on the sofa and glancing in the direction of Xia Ying's room from time to time. She just entered the room, but she hasn't come out yet. Yu Lingfeng is wondering what she is doing. Xia Menjian peeked at Yu Lingfeng from time to time. Yu Lingfeng's dark pupils were slightly rippled, making them look even deeper. The cold light shining in his eyes added a touch of indifference. The tall nose bridge and well-defined lips are strong and somewhat charming. Xia Menjian was stunned as she looked at it. Why does such a good-looking person exist? The first time Xia Menjian saw Yu Lingfeng, she thought he was so handsome. He was so handsome that his facial features and body proportions were perfect. This person seems to represent perfection, perfection without a single flaw. Xia Menjian pursed her lips, squeezed out a few tears from her eyes, stared at Yu Lingfeng with a charming look, and said in a coquettish voice, "Yu Lingfeng, do you know? In fact, it was really because Sister Sakura bumped me with her elbow just now that I couldn't hold my chicken soup steady and spilled it." Yu Lingfeng didn't notice that there was someone else in the living room at first, but when he heard the harsh sound, Yu Lingfeng's beautiful eyebrows wrinkled, his eyes drooped, and he glanced sideways at Xia Menjian, full of disdain and indifference. There was not much expression on Yu Lingfeng's face, so Xiaomenjian thought that Yu Lingfeng was listening to her words, so she continued, "Actually, I have always liked Sister Xiaoying, and I try to please her in everything, but Sister Xiaoying always feels distant from me. Moreover, she bullies me in private from time to time. I feel really sad, but if I say it, my father and Aunt Luo will definitely not believe it. In my eyes, Sister Xiaoying is such a sensible person." Yu Lingfeng remained calm and listened silently. He wanted to know what she planned to do next. "Originally, I thought that Sister Xiaoying was easy to get along with and was really nice to me, but after a long time, I realized the true character of Sister Xiaoying. She was really too selfish. I knew that I was just a selfish person who couldn't be seen. She's a girl, but at least I have the same blood as hers. Why does she keep looking down on me and targeting me?" At this point, Xiaomenjian sobbed a few times, with pain on her face. Yu Lingfeng moved his fingers on the sofa, feeling a little impatient. Xiaomenjian was still talking. "Yu Lingfeng, you are a good person. I know that you have a good relationship with Sister Xiaoying. However, I hope you can still see her true character and stay away from her. I don't want you to be she lied." Yu Lingfeng moved her lips and stared at Xiaomenjian with half-closed eyes. "Stay away from her." There was a slight disdain and playfulness in her words, but Xiaomenjian was so immersed in Yu Lingfeng and her joy of speaking that she didn't notice it. Xiaomenjian nodded fiercely and then said, "I'm doing this for your own good. Staying far away from her, does it mean that I need to stay closer to you?" Yu Lingfeng raised his eyebrows and said jokingly. Xiaomenjian shook her head, and at this moment, Yu Lingfeng had already walked towards her with long legs. Little cuties who like this book can join the reader group to play together. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 86. Chapter 86. Happiness comes too suddenly. Xiaomenjian felt that happiness came too suddenly at this moment. She was so happy and excited that she forgot to breathe and stared at Yu Lingfeng, who was walking towards her with her big eyes open. The closer Yu Lingfeng got to her, the more clearly Xiaomenjian could sense the beauty of the man in front of her. With an unpredictable expression on his face, Yu Lingfeng sat down next to Xiaomenjian. Xiaomenjian's heartbeat began to accelerate with excitement. It was the first time that Yu Lingfeng was so close to her, and it was he who came closer on his own initiative. Xiaomenjian felt like she was suffocating at this moment, so happy that she lacked oxygen. "You like me?" Yu Lingfeng raised his eyebrows and asked. Xiaomenjian nodded vigorously and looked at Yu Lingfeng with starry eyes. Yu Lingfeng seemed to be smiling but not smiling, with an extremely dangerous smile hanging on the corner of his mouth. At this moment, Xia Ying just walked from the room to the living room and saw Yu Lingfeng and Xiaomenjian. Xia Ying raised her eyebrows, wondering why Yu Lingfeng and Xiaomenjian were so close and seemed a bit intimate. Xia Ying leaned against the wall and watched their next movements. Yu Lingfeng suddenly reached out to Xiaomenjian. Xiaomenjian held her breath, bit her lip, and her face began to turn red. Yu Lingfeng's careless hand made Xiaomenjian think that Yu Lingfeng was reaching out to caress her face. At this moment, Yu Lingfeng's hand was indeed close to her face. Yu Lingfeng's lips were slightly raised, and his eyes were as cold as ever, the moment he was about to get close to Xiaomenjian's skin. Yu Lingfeng's hand suddenly moved down and pinched Xiaomenjian's neck. At this moment, her eyes began to become bloodthirsty and terrifying. Xiaomenjian panicked, but she was pinched by Yu Lingfeng. She couldn't utter even half a syllable at all. She just kept opening her mouth, and her face was already suffering from lack of oxygen, and turned red from holding back. Xia Ying on the side frowned. What was Yu Lingfeng doing? Did he want to kill Xiamenjian? However, before Xia Ying could step forward to stop her, Yu Lingfeng had already withdrawn her hand, stood up and left abruptly. Xiamenjian was panting heavily, as if she had walked through the gates of and came back. The whole person was so dizzy that he couldn't tell the difference between east, west, and north. The veins in Xiamenjian's neck bulged out, but they slowly began to calm down. Xiamenjian stared at Yu Lingfeng in front of her. Yu Lingfeng slowly took out 2 pieces of paper from the tissue box on the coffee table and carefully wiped the hand that had just touched Xiamenjian's neck. Yu Lingfeng's face returned to calm, he just stared at Xiamenjian with sinister eyes, and said word by word, "Remember the feeling just now, if you want to do anything to Xia Ying again in the future, I will let you spend the rest of your days with a feeling that life is worse than death." After hearing this, Xiamenjian's pupils suddenly dilated. It turned out that everything he did was for Xia Ying. No matter what she said to him, he only had Xia Ying in his heart. Xiamenjian suddenly felt a throbbing pain in her heart. "Yu Lingfeng." Xia Ying walked towards Yu Lingfeng and called Yu Lingfeng's name. Yu Lingfeng turned back to look at Xia Ying, her eyes softened from the scary look just now, and her eyes instantly showed warmth. "Why get your hands dirty for that kind of person?" Xia Ying said coldly, glaring at Xiamenjian who was behind Yu Lingfeng. Then, Xia Ying took out the disinfectant on the side and sprayed it on Yu Lingfeng's hand. Then she took out the wet tissue and wiped it gently on Yu Lingfeng's hand. Yu Lingfeng lowered his eyes, looked at Xia Ying's serious and careful look, and raised a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. Readership, 6746073775. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuen Suya. Chapter 87. Chapter 87. Don't Kiss Me Without Consent. Xiamenjian, who was sitting on the sofa, was so shocked by the shocking scene in front of her that her eyes widened. She actually used disinfectant to disinfect Yu Lingfeng. Is Xia Ying insinuating that she is poisonous? Insinuating that she is dirty? Xiamenjian frowned and glared at Xia Ying, waiting to see. Even though she didn't have the ability to overwhelm Xia Ying, Xiamenjian still had an even greater asset, Mu Niankai. Mu Niankai is a ruthless person, and coupled with her poor brain, it is very easy to be provoked by her, as long as she goes to Mu Niankai's place to blow a few gusts of wind. Xia Ying's life will not be so easy in the future. All right. After Xia Ying finished treating Yu Lingfeng, she raised her head and showed a sweet smile. Yu Lingfeng was dazzled by Xia Ying's smile, and the next second, Yu Lingfeng leaned over and pressed a shallow kiss on Xia Ying's lips. He didn't know what was going on, maybe it was just a subconscious action. The smile she just gave was so beautiful and charming. Xia Ying was stunned for a moment, her pupils dilated instantly and her breathing began to quicken. "Thanks." Yu Lingfeng said this lightly. Xia Ying quickly turned around and ran away. Yu Lingfeng froze on the spot and frowned in confusion. Did he scare her? Yu Lingfeng thought this and stepped forward to chase Xia Ying. At this moment, Xiamenjian, who had witnessed everything just now, was completely stunned. What did she see? Yu Lingfeng kissed Xia Ying? Xia Ying ran into the room, but she didn't notice Yu Lingfeng following her. Xia Ying turned around and saw Yu Lingfeng with a calm expression. Why are you following me?" Xia Ying suddenly stuttered. Yu Lingfeng looked at her, "Are you avoiding me?" "No, it's not." Xia Ying lowered her head and turned around to leave. "Sky. Why does Yu Lingfeng keep following her?" Xia Ying walked to the room and turned on the TV, preparing to relieve the embarrassment. Yu Lingfeng sat on a sofa next to him. He kept staring at her motionless until Xia Ying couldn't help it anymore and finally turned her head to look at him. "Yu Lingfeng, it's impolite to keep staring at others." Yu Lingfeng did not answer, but stared at Xia Ying's blushing face and said lightly, "You are blushing." Xia Ying's eyes widened and she didn't know how to answer him for a moment. Yu Lingfeng frowned and stood up. You Lingfeng. Xia Ying bit her lip and looked at Yu Lingfeng. Yu Lingfeng looked at Xia Ying calmly, waiting for her next words. You can't kiss me without my consent. Oops. Xia Ying's voice became lower and lower as she spoke. After finishing speaking, Xia Ying just wanted to find a hole in the ground to crawl into. The temperature on his face also skyrocketed. What she wanted to say in her heart was that he couldn't kiss her, so why did she say it like this? Yu Lingfeng showed an imperceptible smile and said, well, I will kiss you with your consent next time. Perhaps sensing Xia Ying's embarrassment, Yu Lingfeng turned and left after speaking. Xia Ying sat frozen where she was. What did he just say? Xia Ying swallowed, her face getting hotter and hotter. The next day, the news that Xia Menjian's leg was burned and she could not come to class immediately spread throughout the class. Mu Niankai had a phone call with Xia Menjian yesterday. Xia Menjian said that Xia Ying framed her deliberately. Mu Niankai felt aggrieved after hearing this. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 88. Chapter 88. Can IQ be controlled? Xia Ying, this woman is really vicious, even my own sister can be so cruel. That's right. Sun Han echoed, what a snake and scorpion. No wonder Xia Menjian doesn't like her. Who would like her if she is so bad? Humph, just wait and see, I will expose Xia Ying's true face sooner or later. Mu Niankai clenched her fists righteously and looked at Xia Ying's back and said. Xia Ying, I heard that you burned Xia Menjian's legs. As soon as Xia Ying sat down, Sun Han came over to find trouble. Sun Han crossed his arms and looked at Xia Ying with a condescending attitude, as if he looked down on her very much. Xia Ying glanced at her lightly, who said that? Just say it, right? Xia Ying raised her head and looked at her coldly, she didn't hold the chicken soup steady when she was burned. Is there anything else you want to say? Oh, you didn't frame her intentionally, Sun Han said with a sinister smile, you have always been grudged against your sister, it must be your intention. Your brain circuit is really strange, Xia Ying sneered, you said that what I did is what I did. Are those who do frame UPS so low level now? No logic at all. Ye Xiaoxun listened to Xia Ying's words and laughed happily on the sidelines. Sun Han heard Ye Xiaoxun's harsh laughter and gave her a vicious roll of the eyes. Why are you laughing? Did I talk to you? I say, Sun Han, if you have time, go and study how to frame people smartly, don't use such methods and techniques to embarrass yourself. Xia Ying sneered. You. Sun Han was so angry by Xia Ying that he didn't know what to say in reply. He just hesitated for a long time and said, just wait and see, your crimes will definitely be exposed. Xia Ying sneered and shook her head and ignored her. The class was in session, and the teacher walked into the classroom with handouts under his arm. Students, let me say one thing before going to class. According to everyone's voting results, the finale stage play of the school's centenary celebration party will be performed by Jun Chennai from our class. Mu Niankai straightened her body and showed a proud smile. We congratulate Xia Ying and Xia Ying as the male and female protagonists. We also hope that these two students will work hard and compete for honors for our school and our class. The students looked confused, but they still applauded. Mu Niankai was dumbfounded, and Xia Ying was stunned. Why did the heroine become her? Shouldn't it be Mu Niankai? Is this different from the previous life? What went wrong? Jun Chennai glanced sideways at Xia Ying, who was standing aside, twitching his lips and saying, hey, can your IQ handle this? Xia Ying gave Jun Chennai a roll of her eyes, if you don't speak, no one will treat you like a mute. Depend on. Mu Niankai cursed, what the is going on? Why is Xia Ying the heroine? I obviously have the highest number of votes. Why is Xia Ying the heroine? Mu Niankai was furious. Xia Ying was already the one to sing the opening song, and now she even has to be given the heroine's position? Does she want to occupy all the focus of the entire party? No, Mu Niankai, you will never allow this to happen. As soon as get out of class was over, Mu Niankai hurriedly ran to find Teacher Su. Teacher Su is the director of the centenary celebration party, and all programs are arranged and decided by her. Teacher Su, why was the heroine replaced by Xia Ying? Mu Niankai clenched her fists and her temples jumped with anger. Teacher Su had actually expected that Mu Niankai would come to her. She just looked at Mu Niankai, sighed, and said meaningfully, "Niankai, there are many things that cannot be changed. I hope you won't do it again in the future. If you do such an irrational thing, let's just forget about it. If you do it again in the future, I won't be able to help you." Mu Niankai blinked and was stunned. "Mr. Su, what does this mean? Could it be that she also knew about the fraud in her votes?" End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yun Suya. Chapter 89. Chapter 89, Group Fights Will Result in Expulsion. Mu Niankai was stunned for a moment, and suddenly thought of what Xia Ying said to her a few days ago. Mu Niankai, just because I don't talk about many things doesn't mean I don't know. You should be glad that I'm not interested in the heroine's position, otherwise, you should know what the consequences will be. Apart from Sun Han and Xia Menjian, only Xia Ying knew that she had falsified her votes. It is absolutely impossible for Sun Han to complain. As for Xia Menjian, she has always hated Xia Ying, so it is definitely not her. Therefore, there is only one possibility, that is, Xia Ying files a complaint. Xia Ying said on the surface that she didn't care about the heroine's position, but secretly she still filed a complaint. What a white lotus, it! Mu Niankai left Teacher Su's office, clenching her fists and gritting her teeth as she walked toward the classroom. "Sister Niankai, what's wrong? Where have you been? Why are you looking so ugly?" Sun Han asked cautiously, fearing that he would offend Mu Niankai and make her angry. "Sun Han, I suspect that Xia Ying went to complain, so the heroine's position was changed to her," Mu Niankai said angrily. "But didn't Xia Ying say that she was not interested in the heroine's position?" Sun Han blinked and asked. "Do you believe Xia Ying's words?" Mu Niankai became angrier as she thought about it. That woman is so disgusting and duplicitous. When get out of class was over, Xia Ying and Ye Xiaoxun went to the toilet together, chatting and laughing along the way, not paying any attention to Mu Niankai and the others who were following them. After Xia Ying and Ye Xiaoxun entered the toilet, Mu Niankai's men drove away the others one after another, and then locked the toilet door to prevent anyone else from entering. Xia Ying listened to the movement outside and probably knew something. Mu Niankai is planning to take revenge on her in the toilet? Just because the heroine's position was changed to her? Xia Ying twitched the corner of her mouth. This woman really didn't stop for a moment. Sun Han kicked the door of Xia Ying's toilet cubicle hard and shouted, "Bitch Xia, come out." Xia Ying chuckled, calmly took out her phone and pressed the record button. At this time, there are so many of them, and Xia Ying definitely can't beat them. But she was not stupid. Mu Niankai came to trouble her again and again, and it was time for her to fight back. "What do you want to do?" Xia Ying asked calmly. "What are you going to do? Let me ask you, did you secretly give our sister Niankai some shoes?" Sun Han shouted. "Did you file a lawsuit against our sister Niankai for falsifying her votes? I don't have this kind of free time. What's the matter? You don't feel ashamed when the incident comes to light, but you come to trouble me instead. Don't you feel that you are very pathetic?" "Xia, can you tell me again?" After hearing this, Mu Niankai gritted her teeth and spoke. Let me tell you by the way, Muni Ankai, if you gather a group of people to beat up your classmates, you will be expelled from the school. Xia Ying said slowly. Ha Muni Ankai sneered. Sun Han on the side said proudly, oh, you don't know who our sister Nian Qi is. She is the principal of Guanyang, but our sister Nian Qi's father. Do you think our sister Nian Qi will be expelled? Well, if you put it that way, Guanyang is still a place where people practice favoritism and bend the law. At least in Guanyang, we, Sister Niankai, are kings. What's wrong with beating you in a group? We, Sister Niankai, can kill you anytime, anywhere, as easily as crushing an ant to death. Xia Ying raised her lips and chuckled, then stopped recording, logged into the official website of Guanyang Middle School, found the campus forum section, and posted the audio she had just recorded. End of this chapter. The Return of the National Goddess. Author, Yuan Suya. Chapter 90. Chapter 90. The principal's phone number was bombarded. Xia Ying is a goddess-like existence in Guanyang. Any post she makes can go viral, not to mention the content of this recording is so explosive. The topic of Xia Ying's post is, after listening to the recording, please give me a call to the principal. Then, a minute later, the principal's phone was bombarded with calls. As for Xia Ying. Xia, if you don't come out, I will pour water inside. Sun Han shouted. Why are you in such a hurry? Xia Ying opened the door with a faint smile and walked out. At this moment, Ye Xiaoxun in the other cubicle was so frightened that he didn't dare to say a word. Xia Ying shouted to Ye Xiaoxun next to her, Xiaoxun, don't be afraid, stay in and don't come out, nothing will happen. Yo-ho! Sun Han and the others immediately laughed after hearing this. Xia Ying was so optimistic. Even though she was like this, she still comforted herself by saying that nothing would happen. How naive! Bitch Xia, I'll let you know right away whether anything will happen. Sun Han threatened. Just at this moment, Muni Ankai's cell phone rang. When Muni Ankai found out it was her father, she hung up impatiently. Etc. Xia Ying stretched out her hand and said to Muni Ankai, I advise you, it is best to answer the phone. Otherwise, if you are expelled from the school and you don't even know the reason, wouldn't it be pitiful? Xia Ying raised her lips and smiled. Muni Ankai was a little confused by Xia Ying's smile. What do you mean? What do you mean? Won't you know it when you answer the phone? Muni Ankai's phone rang again, and Muni Ankai answered the phone very unhappily. Dad, what are you doing? What are you talking about? Stop it immediately and bring your people to my office. Muni Ankai's principal father scolded her and then hung up the phone. At this time, there were still constant calls to him, and he was already so noisy. Muni Ankai glared at Xia Ying. Xia, what did you do? I didn't do anything, I just let everyone know the truth. Ah, oh no, Sister Niankai, please read the campus forum. One of the girls shouted something. Muni Ankai quickly opened the campus forum. Eternal life Yi Yangqingzi, it's so exciting, the principal's daughter falsified her votes and gathered a crowd to beat up the heroine of a stage play according to school rules, she is waiting for expulsion. Qingzi's little fangirl, so Muni Ankai is beating up our goddess Xia Ying? The forever three little ones, what I want to say is that Muni Ankai has been rampant in school for more than a day or two. How many people have been bullied by her, it's just that it was revealed today. I don't know what the school plans to do. Justin Bieber's true love, let me tell you a little, they are now in the women's restroom on the third floor. Yang, Muni Ankai is so disgusting, I actually voted for her, I'm so blind. Muni Ankai couldn't stand it any longer, so she slammed her phone and yelled at Xia Ying, you and I are at odds with each other, just wait and see, I won't make it easy for you. After Muni Ankai finished speaking, she turned around and left. Sun Han and others followed behind her. Mu Niankai just opened the toilet door, and the outside was already blocked with water. Mu Niankai roared angrily, "Get out of here!" A passage appeared in the crowd, and Mu Niankai and the others walked angrily toward the principal's office. At this time, the class bell rang and the crowd dispersed. Xiao Ying knocked on the door next door and said, "Xiao Sun, come out." Yeziaksun opened the door cautiously and came out, his face turned pale with fear. Thanks to the little cutie Chang Xiaoyuji for the red envelope. The new book is very delicate and needs everyone's care. I would like to thank every little angel who voted for Xiao and encouraged me. Thank you very much. End of this chapter.